What's going on, guys? Today, come with us as we go to the deep end of the pool. We're going to go up on the diving board on the high end. We're going to dive in deep on 3 movies, just analyze the shit out of them. They're movies that need to be analyzed. They're ones that you need to do homework when you're done with them. And we're going to do our best here to see what that are all about. What's going on, guys? Thanks for tuning in to the L Squared podcast. My name is Luke Larson. I am your host here, and joining me today, as per the usual, is my lovely and loquacious special guest.
How we doing?
There it is.
Hey, there I am.
We're doing.
Got the mic going.
We're doing good. We're really experimenting here with some technical stuff. We're doing our best here. We finally have 2 mics. People have been clamoring for it. We're in development.
Many people.
There's pretty much every fan we have has been saying, when are you going to get 2 mics? This has been an issue. We need to get this fixed. So this is us fixing it here. So as I said in the beginning, we're going to be talking about. We said 3 movies today. We said we're going to be talking about Waking Life, filmed by Richard Linklater. We're going to be talking about Enemy, filmed by Denis Villeneuve. And then...
Not Dennis.
I
think through, watching his movies, I've gone through, 5 or 6 different pronunciations of his name, so I'm more than happy to have you, take the reins with that.
I'm pretty sure it's Denis Villeneuve, but I've heard
I know Villeneuve. That sounds right.
Yeah, because I've heard some people say Dennis Villanueva. And I'm like, wow.
That's me.
Yeah.
That's 100%. That's me adding vowels and letters. Yes.
Oh yeah.
I will take full responsibility.
So
you could just say it. That's
all right. The person I heard saying it was you. It's confirmed now.
Dennis Villanueva, also an incredible filmmaker.
Yeah, they're both good guys. They've done a lot of interesting work. And then the third one that we're going to be doing today is Holy Motors, and I know the director's name.
I had it down. It's Leo.
It's some Frenchy, right? Stranowski.
No, it's
Oh shoot.
Leos Carax, I think, like that. Corax.
That's probably incorrect, but we'll go with it.
A.
Knowing us. So, a little backstory on this. Holy Motors is a movie that we've known about for a few years now, and it's one that we've talked about before we've dove into. So we've been meaning to really go in deep on it and do a show like this. And then these other 2 we found as well. You recommended Waking Life to me. I recommended Enemy to you, even though you've seen it before. And just to kind of do a deep dive. So we'll start with Waking Life. Then we'll go Enemy. And then we'll go Holy Motors. And like we said, we're going to try and dive in deep and just kind of have a conversation about what we think these might be about. And, hopefully crack the code.
All right, let's get into it.
Okay.
Which one do we want to start with?
Well, let's go with Waking Life. Now, this one I just saw, and I realized this today on the way over here, that I think I might have seen this in the best way possible, because I got home from work last night, and I was like, all right, I need to watch this movie, and I was kind of procrastinating. I was talking to my roommate for a while, and then, YouTube was calling my name, and then this and that, and so it got to be a little late, and I was like, I'll just throw it on. So I rented it on Amazon.
Right.
Throw it on. I watched half of it, and then I have this innate ability that I know, right when I'm going to fall asleep, and so I paused it, went to sleep, woke up early at 6 o'clock, wasn't really awake, started again, watched the rest of it. So I was kind of in a dreamlike state while watching it. And,
it's not a bad place to be.
No, I think it was probably the best way I could have watched it. I think if I just put it on normally, I think it would have been harder. But, initial impressions of it, the animation, it's kind of animated. It's not really, it's like live action, but there's like a filter on it.
Yeah, I think it's what they shot it like documentary style, and they animated over it.
Right.
And so it's very unique. It does take I think it takes a little bit to kind of get used to and kind of adjust your eyes to it.
Yeah, definitely.
And pretty much every different scenario or scene or conversation kind of has a look of its own. So continue. I'll let you.
Okay. Yeah, and that's basically, I agree. That's what I was going to say, was that it took a little bit right away for me to kind of get used to the style, but right away I was a little confused, and then about halfway through, I think I kind of figured out what was going on, or I was pretty sure what was going on, and then they kind of confirmed it at the end. And by the way, spoilers, big time for all these. I mean, we're going beginning to end, obviously, so if you want to see any of these movies, you should watch them if spoilers don't bother you, because I think these are the type of movies that, like we said, you need to do homework afterwards. They don't give you a definitive answer. So maybe hearing the analyzation first might help. But
in a sense, I think, especially Waking Life and Holy Motors, there's no real spoiling these movies.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Those two in particular, I think people are going to take away different things from, and they're gonna latch on to different ideas in different parts of the movie. So
sure.
But Enemy may be a little different. There's kind of more. I would say of the three movies, Enemy has the most concrete plot.
Right. It's the most straightforward.
Which is not saying much.
No.
It's just amongst these three movies, it is most definitely the most straightforward. So
right. And this is Richard Linklater, like we said, who we're both big fans of.
Yep.
He's a phenomenal filmmaker. And the thing that stood out to me was, one of the things right away was there's a lot of Richard Linklater dialogue in this. It's basically all Richard Linklater dialogue.
Right. That's one of the things I feel like it's both the appeal and kind of the turnoff of the movie is how heavy-handed the dialogue is, because it's basically it's an hour and a half, philosophy lecture.
Right, all monologues basically.
Right, and in a sense, it's a really interesting contrast to Holy Motors, which we'll get to later, which is much more visual in its storytelling and its ideas. Yeah. Where this is almost 100%, dialogue. It doesn't really stand without the dialogue. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of wondering, what people in this movie were you attracted to? Because I think one of the really interesting things about this movie is they have, I think everyone knows in our different walks of life, we're gonna hear philosophy from many different people and many different walks of people, and some will be of the kind of Oxford educated type, the one you kind of expect to hear really deep philosophical thoughts from, and others will just come from the guy walking down the street. And I'm always kind of curious to see what which characters people attach to, the more philosophical or the more just kind of matter of the fact kind of.
That's an interesting question. As far as the characters in the film, I like obviously the cameo of the couple from the Before, Jesse
Ethan
and
Hawke,
what's her face?
Yep.
I mean, obviously, and that was before this. That was before Sunset, so it was after the first one.
It was in a dream.
It was in a dream.
It could have been happening.
Yeah. That's true.
As we're getting all paradoxical here. Yeah, it could have been happening during the Before.
Very
series.
true.
Yeah. or
Wow.
after. I don't know.
Or right at the before.
Yeah.
During the before. Yeah. So I like that, but it was a little bit like, okay, you know, I get it. But then I think the one that stood out the most to me was the very last one,
Pinball guy.
which was Richard Linklater. I don't know if
Okay.
you, yeah.
I
when was
don't
watching
know
that-
if I even knew that. Yeah.
Yeah, like I
Okay.
saw it, I was like, oh shit, that is him. And then, yeah, and his philosophy lesson and his thing that he talked about, that hit me like the most. I was like, holy shit. And that was also kind of at the point where they were kind of telling you what was sort of going on, and that's what I had assumed was going on. And so basically, to give you an idea of this film, it's kind of this weird animated type thing, and you follow this, I don't know, young guy. He's probably mid-20s, and he walks just into a town, and then he gets picked up by a boat car guy who was really funny and weird. And then he basically just weird. It's just like a series of scenes with him, and it just kind of, they always pick up right in the middle of it, and then it just kind of keeps going, and there's no real end, and then they kind of, there's not really a straightforward thing, but they kind of keep hinting at dreams, and then they kind of keep talking about it more and more. And so I don't know if you want to get into what you kind of took away from it more.
It's really hard. I was trying to think of some of the things that stood out to me the first time I watched it as opposed to the second time, and I noticed that I was much more interested in the kind of layman ideas about philosophy. So like the one guy, the super profundo on the early eve of your day, the guy that says that to him.
Oh yeah, what the
That
hell?
was, yeah. I don't know why that line I just like cracked me up.
I had to rewind. I was like, what did he say?
And I was like, wait, what did he say? And then like I think the main character you follow like has barely any dialogue for a movie that's all dialogue.
Especially the first half to 3/4 of it,
Yeah.
barely says
he
anything.
hardly says a word.
And that's what was so weird, because all these people are just talking at him, these long lectures, and you're like, why isn't he saying anything? What's going on?
Yeah, and that was I think that's one of the first questions he asked. He's like, what does that mean? And of all the stuff,
Yeah.
like he like all the stuff that's been spewed at you that you could probably say, what does that mean? He asks about that, and then the guy, he's like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
Some guy
said it to me.
said it to me, and I thought it was.
Maybe you figured it out.
And I was like, yeah, I like that. Yeah, so I don't know why that got to me.
That was like the big turning point of the movie.
Right, because that was
too.
the light switch.
Yeah, that was the
light switch, and he also says something to the tune of most people are sleepwalking through their waking life,
Right, yeah,
and others are wake walking through their sleeping
sleep
life,
life.
through their sleep life, through their dream life, or something like that.
Yeah, that was good.
All right.
He's got a leather jacket. It was cool though too, because when he came up to him, he was just like, the main character was like, "Oh, what are you doing here?" Like they knew each other.
Yeah.
But yeah, that guy talked about too was lucid dreaming, and that's kind
The
of where
idea
some of
of-
the dreaming stuff
Yeah.
happened. And I don't know if you picked up on, I'm sure you did, but like kind of throughout, I was like, they had kind of mentioned it a couple times, and I was pretty sure that he was dreaming. And then they they gave you some exposition, but it was definitely needed, and I picked up on it right away. Was basically like that he's dying, and then this is the last brain activity that he has, which is basically subconscious dreaming, flashes of stuff. And so this is like whatever you would see before you die. And some people think it's just a series of things that happen in your life. But the way your brain works when you're dreaming is just a bunch of random shit, and it just keeps going. And then he was probably in it long enough where he realized he was dreaming, so he started lucid dreaming. And it looked like he was a college student, and so it could have been from some lectures, that he had, maybe he was re-picking up on. But it was a really, I'm really excited to watch it again, because I feel like I feel like I'll get a lot more out of the specific dialogue that's said. Because as you're going, the first time you're kind of still trying to figure out what's going on.
Right.
But I feel like like we said, there is just thick dialogue in
It's
this movie.
it's difficult to keep it all in order, and that's. I feel like the super profundo guy. That's definitely a tipping point as far as like understanding what's going on. Which kind of once you understand the dream aspect and the idea that he potentially is just dreaming, the Ethan Hawke conversation makes more sense. That the 6 to 12 minutes of brain activity that they talk about, where after you die,
while your brain is still
alive, and how that in terms of a dream could be, exponentially longer, that 12 minutes, than what our idea of time is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's like kind of an idea that's been explored in other films, like, Inception. That's a big part of Inception is, the idea that the dream world and going deeper into the dream is, longer and longer and farther out.
Flatliners.
Idea of reality. Yeah.
They kill themselves basically to see what their brain does before they bring themselves back to life.
Yeah, so we've seen all of these ideas, and it's an interesting idea to have a movie that just conceptualizes the idea and doesn't actually really go there in a narrative sense.
Right. Yeah, and honestly, like, I think you're right, and I like that. I don't think it could be just a straightforward narrative, and the way they did it, it felt exactly like a dream to me. Yeah. I don't know if it was partly because I was partly asleep both times,
Yeah.
But just because once the animation gets you, it makes it feel like it's not real. It's a little bit more all over the place, and it feels like you're in it more. And just the weird stuff that happens that doesn't make sense, and it shouldn't, And then when you're a main character in a dream, you usually, things are just happening to you. You usually don't say stuff, you just let it happen. And it was a nice, and then the beginning when he was a kid, talking to, I'm assuming his sister or a childhood friend who was doing the thing.
Right.
And she said something about destiny, and then for it to end at the childhood house with him floating again. And that was a great shot. That was my favorite part, was when you just see him slowly float into the sky and become a black dot, and you're just like, holy shit! He just died. I'm pretty sure.
It's definitely, this movie can leave you in a weird place.
Yeah.
These three movies in general, I was saying before, I'm dying for a Jack Reacher smoke break after. I need something I can just go in and turn my brain off, and
Yeah. No,
Yeah. Any other kind of ideas or characters you wanted to talk about with that? Because I know you could really go deep into each one of these. But I mean,
one of them early on, it was one of the more professory types, and he was basically talking about the singularity. He didn't say the singularity, but I knew what he was talking about, and I was like, I bet most people would have, I don't know if they would have a harder time, but I picked up on it right away. He was basically talking about, he called him
was it the neo-human?
Yeah, the neo-human.
Yeah, I like that one too.
Yeah, because I was I knew, right away, I was oh, the singularity, which for all you normal people out there, if you don't know what the singularity is, it has to do with artificial intelligence.
I don't think I do.
Okay, I'll let you know.
Please explain.
So it's basically a point where, I mean, what he was saying was very similar to it, and had the same basic fears and concepts. Was that artificial intelligence? So basically, that's when we make computers think for themselves.
That's like Alicia Vikander,
right? She is artificial intelligence.
Okay. So that's the... Okay, I got it.
Yeah, so basically, you make a computer to think for itself. The first thing that the computer is going to... So you basically teach it, everything everything humans know.
Oscar Isaac teaches it.
Right, exactly. With a beard and a bald head, sweatpants. He boxes in the morning.
It's way hungover.
Super hungover. It's ridiculous.
He doesn't start work till about 12:30 noon.
Yeah, he's got Domhnall Gleeson trapped in a maze. That's all basic stuff.
Okay.
But so so when you basically once computers start thinking for themselves, the first thing they're gonna do is figure out how to make computers smarter. So basically, the computers, once they know everything we know, then they're going to take it a step further and continue to learn more at a faster rate, one that we can't even comprehend. And so then that's going to basically cause the world to end because they're going to be so much smarter than us. We won't have any idea of how to fight it because we've given them everything we know, and they basically doubled it in a second once they become self-aware, and start thinking on another level. Like that's basically what happened. So he said it with the neo-humans, saying we're going to create humans, and he kind of said robot computer things. Once they become smarter, then they'll eventually become blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, that sounds like the Singularity. And it was kind of an interesting
that's
parallel.
interesting. I didn't really take it like that.
Well, first of all, you're wrong, but continue.
That's why I kind of wanted to talk about this movie because I thought like this would probably happen where we would like hear the same thing but be thinking completely.
Yeah, let's do it. Buckle
the
up,
way
boys.
I heard that little spiel and about the neo-human, so like the idea of like a sentient being or like a dream being. I thought it was interesting, and maybe I just grasped onto something a little bit different in the idea, but the idea of a second, like a new evolution, and the evolution being like freedom and like a set of values instead of the evolution that we know, which is like the scientific
like he said,
the de-evolution of like a scientific evolution.
Yeah.
So that evolution would stop, and this new evolution would start with the neo-human idea, which I thought was really interesting.
Right, and so I took that as with the getting away from scientific evolution and going into technological evolution.
Yeah. Because technological evolution wouldn't be like a long growing period of like an organism. It'd be like a growing period of ideas of like
he said, with freedom and
being able to just like the idea of sentience and what that entails. Those ideas would come from that.
Right.
So yeah, I do see where you're coming from. I just kind of, I think I went at it a little different angle.
Yeah, but. I mean, and like I said, I went into it knowing a little bit about, crack.com, I pimp them out a lot. They talk a lot about the Singularity, so I know.
Yeah.
So it's been weighing on my mind. Artificial intelligence is like science fiction's favorite scary theme to go to. It's an easy one.
It's always interesting. Like I'll keep
Absolutely.
watching, Oscar Isaac make, Alicia Vikander AIs like till the day I die.
Every day.
I can't. I'm not going to get sick of that. So.
Yeah, no, and it's a hard thing to grapple with because it's out of your control, and it's the classic monster movie story of I created a monster and then the monster kills you, basically is kind of what that is. So that one was really interesting. There was a weird boat guy. He was funny. He's like, ahoy hoy.
Yeah.
Whatever. And I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
And then just the dude, the passenger, just weird stuff like the interactions in the dream that he had, or dream, were just so like a real dream. Like, you just get into a boat because you're just like, sure, I'll take a ride. And then the passenger, he's like, well, you got to tell me a spot, man. The passenger back's like, all right, take 2 rights and then left, go straight, drop him off on the corner. It's like, okay, like, it's just weird stuff like that, And it was just.
There's no negotiation on his end.
Right.
So.
They just know.
Yeah.
And I don't know, there's just a lot of good, like I said, a lot of the philosophical stuff was really interesting. But like I said, I'd like to get back into it. There was a weird bartender scene with the dude with the gun. Talking about like killed a cop.
And I think that's like one of the ideas of the movie is that you're going to hear these different philosophies from different people, and I think the artwork, the art of the movie kind of like masks it, but I think it's easier to see in real life when you just say like this guy's a crackpot. This guy has no idea what he's talking about. And it's harder to do in this when you're like kind of in this dream state to like differentiate the people that like are really saying intelligent things as opposed to like just like a guy who's, you know, kind of outwardly racist and a
and a bigot.
Yeah.
like you said, the artwork, it is constantly moving. Like it's kind of almost like a living being, which makes it feel more like a dream too. Once you kind of get used to it, it's kind of like free flowing, and it's not like cut and paste, you know, straight edges or anything. But that was a weird one because he was just like, oh yeah, that cop came in, or no, he didn't kill the cop. He killed the cashier because the cashier left, and he like took the cashier's gun and just like unloaded on him, killed him, and you're like, okay. And then he's like, and then the bartender's like, hey, amen. And then he just pulls out his gun, and he's like, man, it's been so long since I fired it. I don't remember what it's like. He's like, well, why don't you take a shot? And then he shot the bartender, and the bartender shot him. And it's like, what the hell just happened? Like, it was just so nonchalant of like, oh, we'll just kill each other. I don't know if that was a message, now that I'm saying it out loud, an anti-violent message. But yeah, the political guy was interesting with the Blues Brothers foghorn thing on his car. And he's going around with the mic saying, "Oh, you people!" Blah.
Oh yeah.
But it was interesting because, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but because he was the classic against the government, against politics, but he wasn't, like, from what he was saying, at least from what I was hearing, I don't know if I was hearing it right, but it kind of sounded like he was against both sides. Like, he didn't like either side. He didn't like the government. He didn't like anything. And he was kind of his own thing, which is interesting because it didn't really sound like he had an agenda necessarily.
Right.
You know, which most of the time that's the number one thing they do is tell you what their agenda is. But he was just like, I don't even know. I mean, didn't he said he was like ex-military?
Yeah, and that's I think that's definitely a stance that it's not uncommon today to be just almost against everything and think that like everything is bad. I think like the other one that reminded me of was the Burning Man, the guy.
Oh yeah, what the hell?
That was the only other one I really wanted to like touch on.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Running long, but
yeah,
I thought that was so. I mean, this movie's not a new movie. It's probably 10 years old or something.
2001. Maybe. So
okay,
15.
So yeah,
almost 30.
Right.
Say.
Yeah, some would say. Yeah. I'm never gonna bring up the date that any movie has been made because apparently they're all 30 or older.
Yeah, they're all 30.
Right. I am old legs.
Old legs.
Also, there's one of the other ones I just wanted to touch on because I thought it was so poignant in like our society today was just it was just a conversation between a man and the main character, and the guy who he's basically he doesn't believe in the system. He's frustrated that the only real way he can make an impact is by putting out a vote. You know, he's talking about, you know, politics, of course, and he talks about the puppet on the left versus the puppet on the right, and which one do you want to vote for. And I feel like that, I mean, without, you know, we're not going to get political or anything.
Absolutely
or, not. You know, there's no need to, but I feel like that's an idea that many people have, and a feeling many people have is, you know, like a sense of like hopelessness and not thinking that either side has an answer,
especially
or thinking both are bad,
right? Especially today.
Yeah,
I mean,
and that was really interesting how like on the nose that scene was, which ends in him, lighting himself on fire, which
that held that shot for a long time, and it was like,
yeah. I don't know, that really stuck with me, especially after what, because it's probably been a couple years since I've seen this, but
and maybe those two are running together in my head. Maybe it's already becoming a dreamlike state for me. Yeah, so. Yeah, but I was sort of proud of myself. I mean, it was pretty easy, but I just assumed, like, pretty much right away that, I mean, it was a little bit before he talked to the lucid dreamer guy, is when I kind of assumed that he was just dying and this was his last, like, dream, because they talked about that right at the beginning, and it was like, oh, okay, and then they just kind of kept going, and I was like, oh, yeah, I bet that's what it is, and then it pretty much confirmed it towards the end. And like I said, the Richard Linklater talk, the pinball guy at the end, really, I was vivid, and it was like, wow, that's, I don't know if it's
just wake up.
He's like, yeah, I haven't done it in a while, but just wake up. It's
wake
easy.
up.
And then
it's easy.
Yeah.
Just like that.
And then he did. Well,
yeah.
He died, I guess, but.
Anything else?
Well, plus the reason that scene stuck with me was because I had a dream that my dead dog came to visit me once too, and I was like, wow, that's interesting. But yeah. No, it's a really interesting, really good movie. As you can tell, this one's going to go long because we're diving deep, man. We're not going to cut it short we got to go all in for all these. So
maybe a part 1, part 2?
Maybe we could.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Wow, we're wasting time here.
We are, as always.
All right.
Okay, so the next one I picked was Enemy. Now, I originally picked a different movie, and then I was trying to think of another one to do, and I thought of Enemy because now the way I heard about Enemy was because, well, Prisoners came out, starring Jake Gyllenhaal and Hugh Jackman.
I think that's I mean, me and my pronunciation, but
no, I'm pretty sure I'm right. Look it up. Okay. Anyway, and Hugh Jackman, Hugh Jackman, I believe is his name, and this one was directed, obviously, by Denis Villeneuve first, and I love that movie. And so when I heard that he had done another movie with Jake Gyllenhaal, I think he had done it before, but it was released after, because Prisoners was obviously a wide release and whatever. So I had heard something about it, and actually Chris Stuckman did an analyzed review of it on his channel. He's a YouTube reviewer. He's my favorite YouTube reviewer out there. And so I saw that, and I was like, all right, I want to watch it, dive in, see if I can figure it out before I watch his review. I ended up just randomly seeing it at Best Buy. Sometimes Best Buy just has DVD or Blu-rays that are like that, so I bought it. I watched it. Felt like I had an okay grasp of what happened, but there were still some things that I was kind of like, I don't really know where that fits in. Is this right? I don't really know. And then I watched his analyzed review, and I thought he did a really good job of, laying it out. So what do you think first, if I could say one more thing? Jake has a great fucking beard in this movie. It's top notch.
I may have said this before, but I started, after seeing Prisoners, after seeing my boy Jake, I started doing the top button on all my button-up shirts because of that movie. And goddamn, if I could grow a beard, I tell you what, I'd grow a beard like he had in Prisoners. It is pretty glorious. So Enemy. Okay, so yeah, you recommended this to me. I had already seen it, but it'd been a while, and I remember I saw it, and I just kind of like took it at face value, and I was like, oh, that was really well done. That was interesting. Don't get it.
Right.
And I just kind of moved on.
I think that's what happens with most of these types of movies is people either respect the artistic value or don't, but just kind of think, okay, and leave it at that. Whereas I think most of these really require a lot of post work to really get into it.
Yeah, right. And I watched it again, and I went into it like, okay, this time I'm gonna try and figure it out, and there's spiders, and I'm gonna try to see what those things are, and so to basically, before we kind of dive into like what everything means, I suppose we have to give kind of a little bit of a synopsis,
Yeah.
if you will.
So you start off with Jake. He's a teacher at this college. I'm pretty sure it's a college. It seemed like a college.
Yep.
Yeah. And he's in like a break room or something, and another teacher's like, "Hey, you should check this movie out." Gives him this movie recommendation. Jake does it. He goes, rents the movie, and then while his girlfriend, wife, whatever, girlfriend, I think, or no, I think it's
Girlfriend.
the girlfriend, right, is sleeping.
Teacher has a girlfriend.
The teacher's girlfriend. She's sleeping, and it's his apartment that he's in, his apartment, and he's on his laptop. He's watching the movie, and it gets to a point where in this movie he stops it because the bellboy in the scene at a hotel looks exactly like him, like almost the same, looks just like pretty much the exact same as him.
Doppelganger,
Which is a short, tiny, this is the main theme in this movie, but it comes up a little bit in Holy Motors. That is an ancient bad omen. If you ever see your doppelganger and meet him, just so you know, it's been in mythology for a long time.
I haven't, so I'm good.
Okay,
right?
You're good.
Okay.
And other people have seen my doppelganger before, and I was like, thank God
Please
I never
don't.
ran into it. I don't want to meet him. So I mean, it's not. They're usually harbingers of bad luck and doom, usually. So that's prevalent in my mind. So basically, he sees this guy looks just like him, and he becomes obsessed with trying to figure out who this guy is. And it kind of, that's kind of where the journey starts. And I think that's a good pushing off point.
Okay.
So obviously we have to spoil stuff. So, we could just go over the plot, I guess, but it's basically he goes to, wherever he figures out this agency that he looks up the guy, right?
Yeah, so
it's been a while.
Yeah, so I like where you're at. So Jake Gyllenhaal as the teacher,
yes,
is trying. He becomes obsessed with the idea of finding his doppelganger, who is an actor in this movie.
Yeah.
So he looks for him. He figures out where he's, living or whatever and whatnot, and he tries to meet up with him, which he does.
Yeah.
Okay. And after meeting up with him, they basically realize that they're identical. They're identical even down to like scars on their body. Was that like they have like they each have a scar?
Same scar on their like stomach.
Right.
And teacher freaks the hell out right after that happens.
Yep, Jake Gyllenhaal, teacher, and he's seen enough then.
Yeah. Then he's like, all right, I'm out. But then Jake Gyllenhaal, actor, gets more intrigued at that point.
Right. Jake Gyllenhaal, actor, then kind of takes the reins and assumes like this idea of figuring out Jake Gyllenhaal, the teacher.
Yeah.
And then another, I guess like we should go into it right now, but another theme throughout this movie, and it's kind of like peppered at the beginning, middle, end, is like this theme of spiders.
Mm-hmm.
The movie opens with a scene in what we assume to be like a
sex club.
Yeah, it's a weird kind of sex club.
Fetishy, yeah.
With men and women, and Jake Gyllenhaal, the actor, which we understand later on going back, he sees a tarantula in basically about to be squished by a foot or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that's important because the spiders keep coming back.
Yeah.
There's a scene where he's walking down a hallway and there's a woman coming, what we assume to be a prostitute with like a spider head, which is incredibly not fun to look at.
You're immediately like, I get it.
So to kind of get into the idea of this movie and to kind of break it down, the first time I watched this, I took it as basically just a straight like doppelganger movie, and I really appreciate this movie because I think you can watch it both ways.
Yeah.
The first time, like, it's a really incredible watch to be like, oh boy, because it's kind of like this dance between like two different women and like a stranger with another woman, and like, will she find out?
Right,
you know?
because that's an important thing too. If I could just quick add that Jake Gyllenhaal actor has a wife who's pregnant.
Yes.
And Jake Gyllenhaal teacher just has a girlfriend. And
so the first time I watched this movie, I just took it as a straight doppelganger movie, Dead Ringer, you know. No Jeremy Irons, though. I don't know if you've seen that.
Shoot.
No.
I
No.
haven't
And it's a really, like, exciting watch, just, like, based off the tension between, you know, flipping these two lives, you know. But I'm pretty sure that is not actually the case. So I'll take a shot at it here.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure if you think about it, the Jake Gyllenhaal as the actor has to be like the real Jake Gyllenhaal, right? Do you agree? He has to be like the actual person, and the Jake Gyllenhaal teacher is like a figment or like a part of his subconscious.
So
They have to be the same person. There's no movie where this is two different people.
Yeah, so I don't want to keep going though. I won't answer that yet, but just keep going.
Okay. My reasoning for that is because of the wife who's pregnant. I feel like understanding this movie you have to pay very close attention to her dialogue. Yes. And then the other scene that kind of unlocked this movie was the classroom scene.
Absolutely. You're on the right track.
The classroom for me was basically just kind of like the movie exposition. He talks about like repeating himself, or like he's a history teacher. He talks about history repeating itself
and revolution,
and the idea of anarchy and the idea of like being trapped, and trapped also kind of goes with the spider web.
And if you've seen Halloween Town 2, Calabar's Revenge, Trappa,
I love where this is going.
Trappa apart. It's the gray spell. That's how you reverse the gray spell. Trappa apart. Boom.
How did I not think of that?
Yeah, see? It's all connected.
It all goes back to Halloween Town 2.
Calabar's Revenge.
God dang it. I knew it. So, oh man.
Sorry, I'm really sorry.
That was great. That was actually great. That was actually great.
He feels trapped.
He does feel trapped. So those were the two things that helped me make that connection. So once I like established that Jake Gyllenhaal, the actor, has to be the real person, then you can assume that the Jake Gyllenhaal is the teacher, and his girlfriend is his girl. Jake Gyllenhaal, the actor, his girlfriend in real life, because I know the wife makes she makes kind of like after he answers the call
from teacher
asking, was that her, or are you going to see
do this
her
again? Yes.
Which makes me assume that he has been he has had infidelities in the past.
I think
so.
You're right. I'll just tell you what,
because those are the only really two things I'm like pretty certain.
Honestly, you're doing
is the classroom and the wife.
So you're doing a really great job here. I'll just jump in. So
take the reins for me.
I'm kind of a little bit, I went into it knowing that Chris Stuckman analyzed it. And I was having similar things you were saying, because I think the first time I watched it, I really was just like, this is a doppelganger movie, whatever. But there are some weird things, and the spiders don't really make sense. And so when I watched Chris Stuckman's review, the first thing he says basically is like, there's a right and a wrong way to analyze this movie. The wrong way would be to analyze it as a doppelganger movie. He says that these are absolutely the same person. And he backs that up by showing interviews of Denis Villeneuve, going around saying basically when they asked him when he was making the movie, they asked him what it was about, and he said, Denis said it's a look into mine or Jake Gyllenhaal's subconscious.
Oh, so he did actually come out and
he did say that. So that's
okay.
That's where we start. Okay.
All right.
So you were right about them being.
That's interesting that he came out and actually just said
because they didn't even know what it was about. He just said it's a movie about either my subconscious or Jake Gyllenhaal's subconscious. So basically, there are you picked up on most of the main clues. Is that basically? So Jake Gyllenhaal, the actor, is technically they're both the real person. You know, they're different aspects of his personality. So when he goes to the agency to get the mail, you know, the guy at the desk says, "I haven't seen you for 6 months. You know, it's been 6 months or whatever." So it's basically he's a struggling actor. He hasn't gotten work in a while, right? So, and if you listen to his mom's voicemail at the beginning, right at the beginning when it's an opening shot, you just hear her voicemail. She says, "When are you going to give up this little
because she
side
calls
job?"
at the end,
the
right?
Same, and it's based pretty much the same voicemail.
Okay, because I get the ending because the ending.
Yeah.
The ending makes sense with what he says in the classroom.
Right.
I'll let you get to it, but
okay. So yeah, so it's the same voicemail pretty much that the mom leaves, and she's like, "When are you going to give up this small thing you're doing?" And she basically means acting, and you should just be a teacher, you know. So he's doing both technically. So like Jake Gyllenhaal, the actor, gets this side job of being a teacher or whatever. To pay the bills when whatever. So, but he does have a history of cheating on his wife, obviously. And it's been a while since I've seen the movie or the analyzed review, but I know that like when she goes to, because she starts looking into it too, because the actor Jake has been looking into all this other shit. So she comes after the teacher Jake, and he doesn't even recognize her, obviously, you know, and she looks frightened and scared, you know, and then when she goes home, she cries about it, which isn't a normal reaction when you would see someone, just some stranger, you know, you met that looks like your husband. So I think that he's just psychologically like so damaged like that he he's just all effed up. So, and also at the beginning, there's a torn photograph that teacher has of just him, and then at the end, because they kind of switch spots, because that's what the actor wants. He wants to take teacher's girlfriend for a date, and then teacher goes home to actor's wife. And then they get intimate and whatever.
Which is like, if you're just watching it as a doppelganger movie, it's
weird.
It's really that enough is like enough like kind of tension and like to help the movie through, because you're like, oh my gosh, you know, this is like, are these two women gonna like find out that they're you know, different, you know, men and. Yeah. So yeah, keep going. But I thought like at face value, it's still a really good movie.
It has the tension there and everything else. So then while that's happening, while the pregnant wife and teacher are like getting intimate and sharing a real moment, it's kind of beautiful, you know. And then the actor Jake is with the girlfriend, and she says that she sees a tan line from where a wedding ring was, and they freak out. They have this big fight. They get in a car accident, right? And they both, whatever, like they just are in this accident. So then it's like the next morning, teacher Jake is in actor Jake's apartment, you know, and teacher Jake's apartment is just bare. There's like nothing there, you know, they're in boxes, the bed is on the floor, where actor Jake's everything is there, whatever. So then he looks at a framed picture, and it's the same picture that was torn before, but it's one, and it's with his wife. So it's the same picture, you know.
Right.
And then he got something in the mail, and it was a key. It was the same key to that sex club, and he gets this weird look on his face, and he's like,
From the start of the movie.
right. So I'm gonna go. And so what Chris thinks is that when he was all the time the actor Jake was with the girlfriend, they had the fight and the car crash. That was happening simultaneously with teacher Jake getting close with his wife again. So he thinks that Jake is a cheater, you know, and like that part of himself, the cheating part that was cheating, he wanted to like kill it, you know,
Which he was successful in doing.
Right. So he did.
Which I think there's a giveaway I caught onto was when they're fighting in the car right before the accident.
Yeah.
Actor and
girlfriend,
mistress,
right? Mistress. Call her that.
He says like a bunch of times like I'm not a real man, I'm not a real man, and I was like, okay, I get it. Like he's not a real man, and then the car accident happens. He severs the tie for the time being,
right?
Until, like you said, the package comes back,
and
you go back to the classroom. The history, the vicious cycle.
These cycles are going to repeat themselves.
He looks at the key, and he's instantly
taken back. The lust and
that you would say like he wants to go back and
start it all over again.
Yeah,
and so you're right. And so, but then when he goes in the room,
because this is when he's also getting the message from his mother.
Yep.
Which he gets at the start of the movie, right?
Beginning.
Which is just completes the loop, right?
Yep, exactly. Boom.
Got it.
So and then the ending shot when he goes to tell his wife, "Hey, I'm going out tonight." He goes in the room and it's this giant ass spider and it backs up. You know, it's like
terrible.
Really scary.
I really I hated it. Like,
but it's very interesting because this is where he makes a good point. Like, you know, it backs up, and you're like, holy shit. And then Jake isn't scared. He has this look on his face of sad acceptance, almost, you know, of just kind of like, you know, like he knows it's going to happen again. And, you know, at the beginning, in the sex club, the fantasy is of a spider getting squashed. There's that big spider, giant spider roaming around the city at one point, you know. And then there's this spider and that spider. Chris thinks that spiders represent women in the movie. And the reason is because, and the reason that would be scary is because spiders, when they mate, oftentimes the female eats the male when they're done. They overpower the male. You know, they're in control. And spiders throughout are associated with women. When he before or after, I think it's right before he meets with his mom, is when that big spider was roaming around the city, you know, representing her control over him. You know, he has a fantasy of squashing the spider, of getting out of that control of a relationship, and then at the end, when his wife all of a sudden is a spider and backs up and is scared, she's afraid of getting squashed.
This was the only part.
See, now that makes a lot of sense to me.
The only part I couldn't really get on board with was I didn't understand. I wasn't sure on the spiders, and I can see that like women are the spiders in this case. I thought maybe that the spider was his. A part of his like subconscious, a part of like the subconscious that he tried to sever ties with. I understand the women thing. The only problem I had with it, like the idea of him squashing the spider, is that we don't necessarily see him do it,
right? And
so we don't see him actually follow through with this like idea in his head. And apart from, I mean, I guess there is a little bit of like, you know, somewhat domestic kind of violence with his like mistress, but we see that we see that he can't actually. He's not a violent person. He can't actually hurt like a woman.
Right. And I don't think I meant like physically.
No. Like I was just I get what you're saying there. I just like I understand that point of view. I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can like 100% jump on board with it.
I am 100% on board.
I know.
Because it makes the most sense to me. Because when else?
I still wasn't.
Around?
Yeah.
The spider's on the stripper's head. The spider was with the mom. The spider was the wife. You know.
No, I get it. For some reason it doesn't 100% like sit with me. Like I still feel like there's more.
And the enemy in question, the title enemy, I think is himself.
Right.
Is him.
That makes sense.
And spiders suck. And women suck. So there you go.
Yeah.
Well, closes the loop.
Did we get it?
I think we got it.
So yeah, I liked it. I liked the loop. I was on board with kind of the duality of his personalities.
Yeah.
Jury's still out for me with the spiders.
Okay.
But the spiders are a good touch. So
I think you're wrong, but should we give Holy Motors its own? Should we chop it here, or should we just keep going the whole way?
How about let's chop it. Chop it and go anew.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, so thanks for obviously tuning into this one. Obviously, right after this, we're going into Holy Motors, which we're both really excited about. This is the one we put the most work into, and these other two were really fun, and but the best is yet to come. We just don't want to go super long. So thanks for tuning in, guys. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you in just a few seconds.
Peace.